Hello and welcome to Indie Incursion, an indie games podcast, your weekly source for all the indie games news you want to know and love. This week we're bringing you 4 awesome indie games news stories, but before we get into any of that, I'd like to introduce myself, Vaughn Hyde, and my illustrious co-host, the Big Josh Boy. How you doing today, Big Josh Boy?
Oh, I'm doing good. I like how we're still keeping up with that illustrious part. It's nice.
It's gonna go to the end of time, really. It's kind of just like the Big Josh Boy. Eventually, when you die, of all people, you'd think somebody actually closer to you, but me, of all people, will have that engraved on your tombstone, either legally or I will do it myself. It's gonna happen now. It's something that has to happen.
What if you die before me, though?
Ghost, dude.
Oh, yeah, Ghost of Vaughn Hyde. I guess it all comes full circle.
Full circle, I'll scare you to death, and then we'll be ghosts together, and I'll vandalize your tombstone when you're, like, ghost sleeping or something like that.
Ghost sleeping. That sounds like a thing. Checks out.
Yeah, it makes sense. I don't see why ghosts wouldn't sleep. What else are they doing with their eternity's worth of time?
That's true, too. I don't know.
Yeah, moving on to the afterlife? No, they're ghosts.
No,
they're
that sounds
haunting
lame.
people. They're fucking with shit. They're like, I don't know what else ghosts do.
Wow, that's all you got, huh?
They fight other ghosts. Danny Phantom being my specific reference for that one. Yeah.
How do we keep always getting back? Man, these references always come
How do we keep
up.
getting back to Danny Phantom? Because it's a great show. Why wouldn't we get back to Danny Phantom?
All right. Let's move on.
So what have you been playing this week, indie games or otherwise?
So this week it's been all indie games, but to be honest, I haven't really been playing too much. I've actually been pretty busy, but I did pick up the new Cadence of Hyrule game. Ooh. So yeah. So for the listeners, that's basically the Zelda-based Crypt of the Necrodancer sequel, kind of. I don't know because I never played actual Crypt of the Necrodancer, so I don't know if it's a direct sequel. It doesn't really have anything that would make it seem like that, because it just kind of jumps in where your character, Cadence, is just like, oh, I'm in the world of Zelda, why? And then randomly it teaches you the tutorial and then dumps you into the world where you get to just be either Link or Zelda. It's really interesting the way it's done because it's all procedurally generated. So the entire map is always going to be the same size. It's always the same like grid size, meaning. But the world around you has different types of dungeons, different types of monsters, and items that are all throughout. The items are always the same, but they're in different locations. So it becomes this thing where if you want to get really good at the game, you can be like, I took the least amount of steps or the least amount of movement to beat the whole thing, or I did it in, the quickest time kind of a thing. I don't think I'm ever going to really get into that, but honestly, the gameplay for it is pretty solid. I think it's a lot more forgiving from what I've heard of people that have talked of the Crypt of the Necrodancer. It's not intensely hard. It is a little strange to get the hang of. There's definitely a learning curve to it, but it's really fun. It's basically, there's just this awesome set of soundtrack songs for each of the different areas that you go into that will play kind of on a loop. Like there's different sections that have varying songs that will play. And so you'll run through, and there's a specific BPM. It's not based on like changing BPM. It's just each song has a set one that you have to, and BPM being beats per minute, of you have to basically click the button each time the beat of the song so that you're moving or attacking with that beat. So it's a little weird because sometimes you get in your mind, you're like, oh, I want to attack this person. I'm going to click like double fast because I just want to hit him really quick. And it's like, no, you have to go with the beat. You have to go with the movement of the monsters. But it makes it very strategic in that you have to understand which way the monster is going to jump, what type of attack they have. Do they wait a turn, like a beat before they attack, or do they attack right away? So it takes a little bit to learn it, but it's a lot of fun. And the Zelda songs, like this, first off, Zelda music is great, but this soundtrack that they have is just awesome. I played the game once and was like, man, the music in here is like, it's fantastic. And I've just been playing it on YouTube while I'm at work in the background of just the actual soundtrack. So I'm just listening to all the songs over and over again, and there's a ton of them too. But it's a really good time so far.
Does it have its own original soundtrack, or is it Legend of Zelda songs?
No, so it's the Legend of Zelda songs, but all like remixed. So it's all
okay, that's
it's
cool.
all their own original music, but remixes of the normal ones that you would normally hear, you know, like the dun 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 dun, dun, like those kind of songs. Like you'll hear them, but it'll be like a guitar riff in the background, or for some reason in the dungeons they have like these ominous like singers who are doing it, and they're like, oh, 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 oh. Like it's so weird. It makes like that part kind of trips me up because it makes me laugh every time, and like I'm playing it out loud. So my wife the other day was just giggling to herself, and she's like, what is going on in your game? And I was like, I don't know, it does this when I get in dungeons.
Yeah, that's definitely a Crypt of the Necrodancer thing. It does that exact same thing in that game.
Yeah, so that one took me for a loop, and it's a little, like, when I first started hearing it, it was a little removing from kind of like the atmosphere of it, because I was like, this is just silly. But at the same time, I really enjoyed it. And it's a really good gameplay as far as the way the mechanic works for having to hit people at certain angles, having to position yourself around it, and like understanding your map space and not getting cornered by a ton of enemies. But the one thing I will say is there's so many items in the game, because it's very Zelda-esque. It has things like the hook shot, the bow and arrow, these bomb chews. It's got a number of items that you would see inside Zelda games, but it's to the point where you can only use 4 of them at a time, and half the time I'm so engrossed in just jumping back and forth and attacking with a regular sword that I often forget about those items. And that might just be, once again, another learning curve. I've only sat down and played this for probably like 4 to 5 hours, but it definitely seems like there's a lot more in the game than I'll ever really get to experiment with from a casual player's perspective.
Does it have, this is something I was curious about and I wasn't 100% sure. Does it have 3 playable characters, Cadence, Link, and Zelda, or
Yes.
do you just play as one of them?
So the way it works is you start off and you're Cadence, and it goes through the tutorial, shows you how to play the game, and you're like, okay, cool. And then it says, oh, there's these 2 sleeping heroes, and it's basically Link and Zelda, and you get to choose which one, and you teleport to that character that you've chosen. And then you're like, so for me, I picked Link. So I jump down there, I wake Link up, and Link goes, oh, I have to blah, blah, whatever. Basically the main story of the game. I have to go save the world kind of a thing. And Cadence is like, all right, well, I'm out of here, and just like dips. And
Just
so then,
pieces out.
yeah. And so I was like, okay. So then I'm Link, and I'm like, all right, so I'm traveling the world, I'm Link. But at the same time, I could have picked Zelda and started with her. And as I continue through the game, eventually you'll find Cadence again and be able to have Cadence on your team, as well as Zelda. So you could swap through any 3 of them during the game at specific locations, but you're always playing as that one character, just you have to swap. And one of the cool things about them is each of them have these little unique abilities. So Zelda has, instead of a shield, she has her little mirror shield thing where she kind of like does the shimmery twirl thing that you would see in Super Smash Brothers. She also has this fireball mechanic where she'll shoot a fireball, where instead Link would use a shield and do his sword spinning attack.
Yeah, I was going to ask, do each of them have their own like special attacks, or is it just like a plain sword and then you get these like special attacks?
So you find the special attacks as you're going throughout the game. That's one of the things about, I kind of mentioned it was procedurally generated. All of these items are always going to pop up, but they're going to be in different locations. So you find your specials, and the way it works is if you find your special attack for Link, that would be the swirly sword. That basically means that you found Zelda's fireball attack. You just have to have the Zelda character as well, and in that regards, you have to switch over to her if you want to use her abilities.
That's cool. Have you played it all as Cadence or just Link and Zelda?
I've been just Link and Zelda for this. A other than the tutorial afterwards, I didn't really have any, kind of nostalgia to Cadence just because I had never played Crypt of the Necrodancer and I'm more of a Zelda fan. So it was one of those things where I was just like, meh, I'm okay with that. But one of the Cadence abilities was that she had a stun for nearby enemies. So I might pick that up just to see what that's like, to see if it kind of grooves more with my playstyle. But for the most part, I've just been hanging out with the Link.
Nice. Are you playing with the DDR pad?
No, I wish. I don't have my metal pad anymore. Otherwise, I definitely would have given it a try. I don't know how it would have worked since you have not only the arrow buttons, but also the 4 additional buttons to use items. So I don't know how they would have adjusted for that on a DDR pad. But regardless, I would still love to try it if I could.
Wouldn't that be crazy if they also made you hold the Joy-Cons?
Yeah,
like
that's what I was thinking.
Just
Just one Joy-Con so you could hit the buttons while you were playing. I mean, you could also do the double pads.
I don't know what that is.
Well, in a DDR cabinet, you would have not only one side, but also a second where you would have the 8 arrows, basically. And so playing doubles would mean that you're playing on all 8 arrows, and you would have to run back and forth between them.
Oh, gotcha. All right, that's pretty cool, dude. Cadence of Hyrule. For some reason, I was going to say Zelda. I don't know why. She's already of Hyrule. Yeah. Cadence of Hyrule looks really, really cool. I'm glad you checked it out. How much did it cost?
So it was actually a pretty high price point. It was $25. Which the reason why I say high is because this game is probably beaten in around 5 to 6 hours for the most part. I'm pretty much at the end. I've defeated 4 of the main dungeons, and then I think I only have to face the main boss, which is this Octavo guy. I'm not really 100% sure because I haven't gotten to that part yet. But that being said, I've only played about 4 to 5 hours. I'm feeling that this is going to be close to the end, and that's what I've heard from other people online. So $25 is kind of a high price point, but it's pretty fun, and really one of the main things is just the soundtrack itself is one of the great reasons to have this.
Plus, I imagine since it's procedurally generated, they would call it like infinitely replayable, essentially.
Yeah, you can, because there's a whole thing with the game where they're counting. If you go to your menu, it'll show you, oh, this is how many total steps you've had, and this is how long you've been playing for. So there's ways, and you can look at different seeds of other individuals games. So you can more or less compete that way. And then at the same time, as you're playing, once again, because it's procedurally generated, you can keep trying it and get better and yada yada and try different items and abilities. But for the most part, for individuals who are generally, at least like me, I'm more kind of a one and done with games. For those that, like this, have more of a storyline and you kind of beat it. I think if this was more procedurally generated in the fact where every time you did it, it was immensely different, then I would keep playing it, but I don't think this will be a game that I keep picking up over and over again.
And last question, I promise. This is the last question I'm going to ask you about this. Have you tried it without the rhythm mode? We have a story later on in News Cram that talks about you can play Cadence of Hyrule without the rhythm mode. I don't really know how that'd work. It seems like it would just basically be a Legend of Zelda game at that point, but have you tried it at all?
I haven't tried it, but I understand what it does, mostly because I enjoy the game pacing of the regular beat mode. But by turning off the music part of it, which it doesn't actually change the soundtrack, but unlinking it from the music and the game, essentially what it does is make it more of a strategy game. So think of when you're moving in this game, everything is based on a grid. So every time you move, that's moving one square. And that's essentially movement for anything in this game. It's all grid based. So the way it works is while you're moving during each beat, so are the monsters. And if you're missing beats, the monsters will still move and they'll take their turn. But in this case, they're essentially just removing that, so nothing in the world will move unless you do. So
Oh, that's really cool. So it makes basically everything turn-based. So it changes from rhythm-based to turn-based?
Kinda, yeah. So in this case, what would happen is you're not pressured to go with that beat. You can take more time and think about, okay, if I move up here, the enemy that's 3 blocks away is going to move so that they'd be 2 blocks. And if I move then 1 block towards them, they would get towards me and be able to attack me. So I should go a different angle and, be able to catch them before they can hit me. So that kind of thing. So every time you move, they move, and you get to plot out really where you need to go without the pressure of that music ticking down and you having to move each time. Because that's really the way the game works in general, is you have to be fast enough to think on your feet because you have to move every time the beat hits. And if you don't, you'll miss, which will screw up your modifier. And the monsters will keep continuing to kind of move around you and perform their actions.
I guess this is actually the last question. Do you think this will make you play Crypt of the Necrodancer, or is it just you hopped in because it's a Legend of Zelda game?
Honestly, I've heard that Crypt of the Necrodancer is a lot more challenging. And yeah. But I kind of want to, because at least, I'm not sure at this point, but just a day ago, I saw that it was almost down to like only $3 on Steam. So part of me is like, I might as well just go for it and see what the difference is to kind of compare them, since it's such a low price point when normally I think it's like a $20 pickup. I think I might do it. It depends, because there's also a lot coming out, but I might have some time to actually squeeze that one in. We'll see.
Yeah, hopefully over the summer we have a nice little lull, which is kind of weird to ask for from a gamer and like a journalist perspective, but hopefully there's a nice little lull where you could just play your backlog. Or basically what I'm doing now is just ignoring every other game that's coming out and playing my backlog.
Yeah. I mean, it's pretty crazy. Like, there's 2 stories in our list that we're going to talk about that come out on July 11th. And the Messenger DLC also comes out on July 11th. Like, July, which is coming up real quick, is going to be a hectic month.
Yeah, it seems like everybody's just randomly choosing the same date out of nowhere. It's like they had some sort of focus testing that said July 11th was the best idea. They're like, oh yeah, July 13th, not a good idea at all. For some reason, this odd number like really pisses people off.
I guess so, maybe.
Yeah, I don't really understand. Doesn't make a lot of sense to me. For me, what I've been playing this week, I played a little bit more of The Witcher 3.
Nice.
Enjoying it. Still not going to buy it on Switch. Just going to play it on my PS4 like a normal person.
Are you sure?
And I'm very sure. I'm 100% sure.
We'll see.
And honestly, something really sucks for me because I'm very excited for games to come out, but I'm going to try not to buy them. So I wrote a piece for Handsome Phantom about like some awesome indie games shown at E3, and I was like, man, dude, I really, really want to play Crosscode, but I'm not going to buy it on fucking PC.
It's
I'm going to wait for it to come to consoles. It looks awesome, and I love isekai anime, and this apparently is very similar to an isekai anime, and it's so awesome, and I really want to try it, but I'm not going to try it till it comes to consoles, and seemingly it's not going to come anytime soon, so whatever.
It'll come to the Switch.
Yeah, I'll buy it on the Switch. I mean, supposedly, I don't think it has a release date for any of the consoles. I would assume they're going to come out all at the same time because it is coming to the PlayStation 4 and Xbox One as well.
Yeah,
so I don't know if they're going to stagger that launch or not, like similar to how Hollow Knight did. I personally think it would be a bad idea, but then when you also think about it, people always talk about how like indie games or just games in general, like re-releasing on another platform, kind of it puts like dust in the air. You know what I mean? It reinvigorates people to look at this indie game because now it's also on a platform that they wanted before. It's kind of the whole idea behind the episodic model is that your game never necessarily isn't in the conversation because it's constantly like new things are constantly coming out. So I'm wondering, like, that seems like the only reason that you would possibly stagger your console releases, that and like in Wargroove's case, where it released on consoles with the exception of like PlayStation 4 because they won't do crossplay.
Yeah.
That's also a thing. But other than that, I've played very little of Bloodstained Ritual of the Night.
Oh, you got it, huh?
I did not. I'm doing a first impressions piece for Handsome Phantom. That's going to be out by the time that this comes out, so people could check that out if they want to. It's actually going to be my first video feature for them, so I'm actually kind of excited about that.
Ooh.
But I've only played a couple hours of it. Honestly, Miriam, the playable character, this is my biggest issue with it. She moves like a bag of rocks, dude. She is so fucking slow. Like, I've always thought your thing about people moving was weird. It's intense. Like, people could say that's reminiscent of something like Symphony of the Night or other Castlevania games. I don't believe it is, dude. She's like, it's in my piece. I say it's like she's wearing ankle weights like Rock Lee and Naruto, and it's so true. Like, I'm just waiting for her to eventually get faster, and she's not. She's just not. She's just so slow. It's excessive. I just can't deal with it.
Well, I'm glad you said that, because now I'm probably not going to pick it up.
Yeah, you of all people should not try Ritual of the Night if you don't like slow stuff. But of course, we're going to talk about that in our news section. But our first news story is actually over on Game Informer. This is written by Emma Welch Murphy. That's a cool last name. That's pretty cool. I like hyphenated last names. Don't like what she wrote, but man, I do like her last name. This is No Man's Sky fans thank Hello Games by purchasing ad space on Billboard visible from its offices. No Man's Sky was a game that became infamous for undelivered promises way before Anthem did. But even after all this time and harsh criticism, the developers did not give up hope and worked hard to make the game into what they knew it could be. The community is very happy with what the game has become, and the thought... Oh, okay, that makes sense. And the thought of it getting better moving forward is beyond what they could have hoped for. Do you wonder if maybe she used like the Beyond thing as like a hint at No Man's Sky Beyond? Do you think she did that on purpose?
Maybe.
I don't think she did, but
know.
man,
That would have been
that
clever.
would take. Yeah, that would have been real clever. I'm gonna give her the benefit of the doubt and say she's clever. She did that on purpose. Besides just kind words sent to Hello Games, Hello Games way through social media, the fans went above and beyond basically, and they purchased ad space in a billboard directly across from Hello Games that says "Thank you, Hello Games," and it links to, I believe, the Reddit for Hello Games, or Reddit for No Man's Sky. It's r/No Man's Sky the game. Mm-hmm. At least I think so. So the only reason that I feel weird that I always like, in a way, review articles on this podcast. The only issue that I have with this, and I just want to know your opinion, I feel like this is mostly the reason that I bring it up on the podcast, other than venting to the big Josh boy, my therapist of therapists.
Not licensed.
Is that she seems overly negative about No Man's Sky and Hello Games like achievement. She kind of like initially starts off negative. She takes a shot at No Man's Sky and Anthem, which yes, it is infamous for undelivered promises. And at the bottom she said a lot of people lost hope in the game, but looking at the success it has brought back to itself so far through updates, it is hard not to get tempted to give it another look. It seems like she herself was somewhat burnt by like No Man's Sky and is now somewhat bitter about it. I mean, you'd be hard pressed to find anybody out there who, like a gamer out there, who did not get like burnt by No Man's Sky. But am I just like being a little bit too sensitive about this, or does this article seem a little bit like inherently negative?
I think you're somewhat right, and also you're looking way too into it.
I mean, I looked way too into the fact that she said Beyond too, so it's really not like, it's not a stretch for my character.
Yeah.
If anything, it's true. On brand. Let's be real here.
Yeah, I mean, negativity aside, I think the great part about this is the community of No Man's Sky. Over the weeks, we just keep seeing it again and again. They keep being so much of a force in the news space that I feel like this kind of goes into what you were talking about, where they're consistently being talked about in that episodic kind of style, but it's their community that's doing it, not even No Man's Sky, which is crazy. Like, it's interesting to see or to think about what made this game so, in a way, positive from a community perspective, and how they really kind of cultivated that to see, like, you know, what are they doing right that other games aren't. And for one, it could just be that it started out with a much smaller popular base because generally as you get bigger and things, I mean, look at Twitch chat, it gets real toxic. But I think it's awesome. I think it's really funny that a community of people decided to all come together just to give them a little shout out for this. And like, good for the devs. Like, they must be really living it up because obviously at the end of the day, that's what they want. Like, they want their consumers to have a sense of, you know, enjoyment for the games that they're creating.
Yeah, I do. I love that No Man's Sky and its community is constantly in the news about something amazing they did, because generally what we see in the games industry when it comes to like communities, and of course there are exceptions to the rule like No Man's Sky's community, but it's almost entirely like toxicity, just people being dickheads, like constantly. I mean, you don't see news articles about it anymore because it's not newsworthy, but it's well known that like League of Legends has one of the most toxic communities that exists in in the universe, really. Like, there might be like the worst planet of all time out there, just like terrible people. No, that's a stretch. That's definitely a stretch.
Did you ever play League of Legends?
I played a little bit with one of my best friends, and he was a dickhead to me, and I was like, I'm not gonna play this game anymore.
Yeah, I used to play it a lot back in the day. Those people are animals.
If there's any community that's obsessed with gatekeeping culture, it's League of Legends. Like, it's fucking crazy. Like, if you're not immediately great, you're a scrub, like, piece of garbage. You shouldn't play the game. But that's the negative part of this story. I don't want to be inherently negative about this awesome story. No Man's Sky's community is absolutely amazing, and Hello Games has done so many amazing things. I'm still holding out hope. The Psychic Boys are going to come back again. We're going to strike again, and No Man's Sky, Hello Games is going to announce that No Man's Sky Beyond is going to include crossplay. I'm telling you right now, it's going to happen, bro. It's going to happen. They didn't say anything at E3, so the Psychic Boys were kind of wrong. But, you know, when we're looking into the future, when we're using our brain powers,
we're just looking too far ahead.
Yeah, I mean, maybe not even too far ahead. It's just a little bit cloudy, you know? It's like people when they used to read bones. They used to interpret bones. Like, it's kind of like that. It's not an exact science, okay? It's I'm not going to give you dates and times, and it's very possible that we are changing the future by looking at it, because we are indeed Psychic Boys. A shout out to, actually, I kept my Twitter feed up to specifically say this. Shout out to Frederick Hollerstrom. I'm sorry if I said your name wrong. Thank you so much for making the Psychic Boys t-shirt design. I'm going to tell you right now, and this is just going to show how much of a garbage person I truly am. I did not shit my pants. I'm sorry. I'm sorry I didn't do that for you. Yeah, Josh was waiting for the shit update. I was like, man, I really need to showcase how just terrible of a person I am. And the first thing I'm going to do is lie to my community. Yeah, that's exactly what I need to do. Wow. But thank you so much for that awesome t-shirt design. It's fantastic.
You know what? I bet you no one's going to get you a billboard now.
Honestly, if they don't, I'm going to be pissed. At this point, we're just so huge. We got our own t-shirt design. It's going to... Nah, that's not... It's ridiculous. I can't believe it. But speaking of ridiculous, our next news story is over on Polygon. It is written by Michael McWhorton, maybe. This is... Yeah, let's go with that. Bloodstained's launch trailer shows off playable Shovel Knight and teases Child of Light. So I wanted to talk about not necessarily the news story underneath this, but more of the trailer itself. It is very cool that you can play as Shovel Knight, and from what I've seen of like some other people's gameplay of the game, you can actually, like, Shovel Knight is a possible like it's a spell that you can use where you basically summon Shovel Knight and he like kind of shovels dirt at your enemies and it hurts them. It's weird as hell. The fact that you can play as Shovel Knight is super cool, and any sort of tease at Child of Light is very, very cool. But this video itself has just as poor lip syncing as the fucking game does. It's atrocious. I didn't say that initially when I was talking about Bloodstained, but yeah, this video's its lip syncing is just as bad as the game. It's so bad. I'm just gonna leave it at that. Not a fan. And yeah, how do you feel about Shovel Knight being a playable character?
What a tangent. So have you played a Shovel Knight yet then?
No, I haven't played it as myself. I've only played a couple hours. I haven't unlocked it. I just saw in the trailer that you could, and then I've seen other people's gameplay, like late game gameplay,
Gotcha.
and I've seen them summon Shovel Knight. I don't know how any of it works.
Okay, I was gonna say, yeah, that's interesting because I was like, can you just play the whole game as Shovel Knight? Like, I guess not in that regards. I don't know. I think it's really cool. One, because I don't really care as much about Shovel Knight. Like, I enjoyed the series, but like, I also think this is kind of weird in this setting for him to be there. But I like this because I really like the direction that a lot of independent developers are taking of being like, hey, you give me your IP, I'll give you mine, kind of a thing, of just like trading off, putting characters into everyone's game. Because one, it's obviously for promotion of it, but two, it's so awesome because there's people out there who probably were like on the fence about this, but if they're hardcore Shovel Knight fans, they're going to be like, oh, I could play as him? Like, hell yeah, I'm going to buy the game. But I don't know. I think it's definitely strange from the context of the game. I don't know why Shovel Knight makes sense, or why Child of Light would either, but I definitely think it's interesting.
I don't understand Child of Light at all, especially because like its gameplay is completely different. But I somewhat understand Shovel Knight just because Shovel Knight is meant to be a throwback to like early days of Castlevania and Mega Man, like that retro style.
I guess that's
so,
true.
I kind of understand it, but yeah, you're right. It is weird. I do also really share the sentiment of how awesome it is that indie game developers have kind of banded together and just, shared IP. That's awesome. They're just working together instead of working in competition. They're just like, yeah, dude, indie pogo. Why not create an entire fighting game featuring indie game characters that is not made by the actual indie game developer? Like Shovel Knight is an indie pogo. That weird like Michelin man from Downwell is an indie pogo.
Yeah.
Whatever he is, he's just like a white just mass of, I would assume, flesh, but I don't know, with gun boots. He's got them shooty booties.
Shooty boots. It definitely is an interesting area and a different, like, it's an interesting time for independent developers. I think this is a really good call of like, we're getting into this weird area, very Super Smash Brothers-esque of like, you really don't know what character might show up in a game.
Yeah, it is really, really weird. Something I do love that's in the comments of this article is that down there, people are asking if... so if you didn't know, actually, during the initial Kickstarter campaign for this that started back in 2015, they had announced that there was going to be a Wii U, like PS3, Vita ports, like a bunch of different ports that they ended up actually canceling. And I love that there's like so many... There's like 4 people in the comments asking about it. They're like, hey, you got that Vita port? You got that Wii U port? Who the fuck is playing this on Wii U? I have no idea. But also, they did cancel the Wii U port, and then they ended up like making the Nintendo Switch port. So, kind of got the better end of that stick. Let's be real here.
It's much better on Switch. What do you got? Like, what are you doing with a Wii U? Just buy a Switch. So much better.
Have you seen that weird, like, there's been this thing going around on Twitter about, like, it's a cross between either a Wii or a Wii U and a GameCube, and it looks like a Game Boy?
That sounds like a lot going on. No.
Yeah, it's really weird. I don't really understand it. But on to our next news story. This is over on bgcharts.com, I guess. I just knew about this and wanted to talk about it on the podcast, and this was seemingly the only person who talked about it. That's kind of the whole reason we started the podcast, is because not many people actually talk about indie games, which is super annoying. This is Eagle Island release date revealed, and apparently this is news. I thought it's weird that in their title they're like dash news. Publisher Screenwave Media and developer Pixelnix announced the platformer Eagle Island will launch for the Nintendo Switch via the eShop and Windows PC via Steam on July 11th. Oh yeah, boy, dude. This is a Psychic Boys thing. Yeah. I mean, I guess that we were going to get a release date. Sure, you can add the caveat that I said it was going to be at E3. You could suck my ass. It should have been at E3. Let's be real. Should have reached out to Kind of Funny Pixelnix, but whatever, dude. I'm still excited. I'm very freaking excited. This game looks awesome, and I'm interested to play. I noticed this because we have these two stories back to back. So Koji Igarashi, also known as Iga, made Bloodstained, and he was one of the original developers on the early Castlevania games. And then your loyal owl companion in this is named Koji. Any similarity? Is it possibly named Koji because of Koji Igarashi? I don't know. I'm just saying. Seems pretty crazy. Seems pretty not coincidental, if you know what I mean.
All right. Well, all crazy theories aside, the game looks pretty cool. It looks really confusing when I was watching the gameplay, just because I haven't seen a lot about this game. Are you just chucking eagles at people?
Yeah, it's entirely about falconry. So you have from what I understand, you either have one owl or you have multiple, and you actually, you toss them at them, and at certain points you can actually unlock different elemental versions of owls, I believe, through certain talismans or trinkets. Yeah, magical feathers transform your owl into different elemental forms. So you use those, and you can change it with this cool little wheel of different elements, and then you just basically toss it. Something that's really cool about this is that when you're in the air and you actually toss your owl, it gives you a quick boost into the air. So I've seen the developer on Twitter, he does a 10 hit combo, and he'll jump into the air and then just basically be beaming enemy after enemy, and he just slowly comes down to the ground. But it's just kind of interesting. I really like that developers are trying to really experiment with platforming, similar to the slice dash mechanic, you know what I mean, of the Messenger, how if you sliced you could then gain an additional jump, which is kind of crazy for platformers because it just adds an additional element to everything.
Yeah, watching some people speedrun the Messenger is really nuts.
Yeah, watching people speedrun anything is amazing. Speaking of speedrun, there is a story roguelike and speedrun modes in Eagle Island, which for speedrun fans, I mean, that's not my thing, but that's awesome for you guys.
Yeah, I'm more excited about the gameplay mechanic to it. I don't care too much about the speedrun. I think it's interesting, the roguelite part, though. I kind of want to see what that's all about.
Yeah, I've seen the trailer for it saying that it has I believe it says it has 500 unique fuck, what am I thinking? It's
combinations, what, unique enemies, rooms,
200 to 500 unique dungeons, I believe, which I would assume is because they're randomly generated. Yeah. So I think that's where the roguelike stuff comes from. Also, you can get different power-ups, different relics and stuff like that throughout the game, through chests. So if you have randomized environments, then I would assume the loot that you get within them is also randomized.
It's probably just pick it up at different order. There was who was it? Book of Demons, which is a card-based Diablo
No.
They did the same thing where they just had a roguelike version of the game, and they were just like, you have no say in what kind of abilities or cards you're going to get during the game, so it'll change up the run entirely. So yeah, that's probably something to that nature.
Yeah, I would assume so. Are you going to pick up Eagle Island on the 11th, or are you just going to play the Messenger DLC? What's up, dude? Now I'm putting you on the spot.
I'm probably just going to play the Messenger. I mean, this game looks really fun. Actually, I'm not going to lie. It does seem like a game I would be into, but I can't.
Josh, why are you hurting me like this, bro?
I can't do
You're telling me that you like it, and now you're telling me you're not going to play it?
I can't. I can't do the Messenger dirty like that. It needs my love, and I have to give it all.
Yeah, you need to fight them squid people. You need to surf on that, like, bone boat.
Yeah, man, I'm super excited about that. Errol can suck it. He those chase scenes, they're great. He doesn't know what he's talking about.
I mean, also, great innuendo with Bone Boat. Didn't come up with it on purpose, but that's a good one right there. Thank you, people who developed the Messenger, because I forget what your name is.
I didn't even understand it after you had said it. I was like, what are you talking about? And
delayed. Our last news story for today is a pretty sweet one. It's over on Rock, Paper, Shotgun, and it is try the Children of Morta demo before it vanishes on Saturday. So
I hope they wrote it just like you said it. I wish there was a way to convey that in text.
Yeah, like maybe like dots at the end, like kind of like an ampersand. You know what I mean? Like you're kind of running out of breath.
No, because that would be before it vanishes on Saturday.
That's true. That's true. So the only actual bit of news in this article, little did you know, Josh and I talked about this before the podcast, is a single line, which is you can try it for yourself too, and should probably do so quickly as the demo is available now on Steam and is only going to be up for grabs for 72 hours, which would end this Saturday. The rest of this article is entirely opinion, but it is nice that they talk about the Children of Morta launching on the 28th. It's going to be 1979, I guess, maybe.
That's a weird number.
I don't know if that's true. That would kind of annoy me if it is. It's going to be released on Steam and eventually GOG. It's published by 11-Bit Studios. Okay, so I don't know 100% if this is releasing like on consoles as well immediately, but it is confirmed that Merge Games is actually putting out a physical retail version of this game.
So
I don't know if that's coming later or if that's... Yeah, I'm definitely going to get that. That's absolutely what I'm going to get. So if it does come later, I guess I'm not experiencing Children of Morta immediately.
Oh, sad days.
But, yeah, they should put it out immediately. Really. Let's be real here. Do it.
We'll see. I don't know. I mean... This is everything you hope for, Children of Morta? Are you gonna play the demo?
I'll probably play the demo. I hate that I have to play it on PC, for being real.
Oh my goodness. You're so spoiled by these consoles.
Spoiled? It's just now it just makes sense. It's just accessibility. Now I don't have to update drivers and
nobody updates drivers. That shit is automatic.
I'm not even
Get
joking.
Out of here.
Listen to this shit. Yesterday, I go to play Bloodstained Ritual of the Night on my PC, and I get a pop-up window letting me know that, yes, my graphics card can indeed run this, but I should update it because the game apparently has issues with the version I have, and I should update my graphics card. And I was like, you can fuck right off. I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to play this game.
Well,
which it worked perfectly fine.
Well then, see, everything's okay. You calm down.
But as far as I know, it would have crashed my system, Josh. I'm just saying.
Well,
I like how I'm saying I don't like to have to update things all the time, but consoles probably update way more than PCs do.
Every time I go to my PlayStation, I have to wait like 30 minutes for it to update everything.
Also, how often do you touch it, though?
I mean, that's the thing. I always come back like a couple months later, and I'm like, oh, Jesus.
Yeah, exactly. You come back a couple months later, you're going to sit through like 4 hours of like just system updates and bullshit like that. I turn on my PlayStation 4 at least once every day.
Ugh, excessive.
So I very rarely ever have to worry about them. But I also never leave it in rest mode. Some people do that. That bothers me. I'm afraid it's going to burn my house down.
It will.
I'm very skeptical. But
have we talked about this game at all? I think we've just rambled for like 10 minutes.
I mean, we talked about the demo. I'm going to play the demo. I mean, there's not much else to talk about the game unless you want to read the person at Rock, Paper, Shotguns, like, what they thought was cool about the game, which was basically nothing. They just thought it was a game.
Well, it's a game. I mean, they're not wrong.
They're not wrong. You know what's also not wrong? The Big Bone Boat. Yeah, that's a good segment. Yeah. That's a sweet segue over into us getting crammed in News Cram.
Cram. Oh, Big Bone Boat. Let's do it.
Does that need to be another T-shirt idea? The Big Bone Boat?
Bone Boat? Where does the big... what would that look like? I mean, I don't want to... Never mind. Let's not go into that.
Just a phallic image?
Just a phallic. Just a big bone and a boat. Would it be like... is that like a boat that has one big bone, or is it a big bone that has turned into a boat?
I would say it would be just like a bone that's horizontal, can also be used as a boat, and it looks similar to a cucumber but more fleshy. You know what I mean? Like, it looks a little bit more like it just looks more fleshy, more meaty. Maybe a vein or two on it. I mean, because that's what bones look like, right? That's how you get the bone marrow around.
I don't like this. I don't like it at all.
Our first news story over on Newscram is on IGN, and it is Journey developers' new game Sky 2 release in July E3 2019. So apparently that was announced at E3. The next one is also on IGN. It is Chivalry 2 announced for PC. Ooh. Then we're over on Polygon with you can play Cadence of Hyrule without the rhythm mode, like I said earlier. Mm-hmm. Then we're over on Polygon. We got Skatebird is the feel-good success story of E3. Dude. I do have something weird to say about this.
Skatebird looks so cool, though. Don't shit on it.
No, I'm not going to at all. I'm very excited for Skatebird. So is Gary Whitta. Yeah. So me and Gary Whitta, basically best friends now.
Yo.
Little did you know.
Okay, well, first, say what you want about Skatebird. I have one comment about this.
Okay, so I just find it weird that they thought it was such like a crazy thing to do to announce, I believe, like to
announce a game at E3? Who would have fucking thought?
Yeah, like I believe the developer announced the Kickstarter at E3 and they're like, "Oh my god, that's a crazy like revolutionary idea. I can't believe that worked." And I'm like, what the fuck are you talking about?
Unexplored 2 did it like a day before them in the PC gaming show, so
yeah, I don't understand. Like, okay, so Skatebird, as far as I know, was only featured in the Kinda Funny Games showcase for E3, and they also released the Kickstarter at that time. I don't see, like, how that was in any way a risky decision.
Yeah.
They're like, oh, it totally could have bombed, and I'm like, okay, I get that it's up against a lot of, like, other big titles during E3, a lot of big news.
No.
But if you're going to show your game at E3 and it's an indie game, why would you not also release your Kickstarter, especially if it's being featured in something that's literally just about indie games?
Yeah, I don't know.
People came here for indie games.
I mean, I kind of get it because there's both sides to it because one, there's that's the right time to do it. E3 is about announcing games. It's about the hype. It's about, hey, look at all this stuff that's coming out. And the fact that it's one of the ones that is like, hey, you can actually do something about this right now because you can go and back it rather than just be like, cool, a game that I'll play in a month. I think is good. But at the same time, there's also 60 games that were announced in the Kinda Funny thing. So it's like, it's pretty easy to get lost in the sauce, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, that's very true. That's very true. How likely do you think that this is going, like, releasing your, like, Kickstarters, your crowdfunding, whether it's, like, Fig, Kickstarter, Indiegogo, whatever, how likely do you think it is that this is going to become the next, like, games releasing in spring? Meaning, no games released in spring, and then I believe, like, Dying Light did so well because everyone was starved for content that now every fucking game comes out in spring.
You think there's going to be just a whole, like, shift in games.
Yeah,
because
how
of
likely
that.
do you think it's gonna be that people see that this did so well, that the Kickstarter did so well because it was announced at E3, that next E3 we're gonna see the next like Kind of Funny game showcase or whatever, and it's gonna be like Kickstarter, 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 Kickstarter.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a pretty justifiable thought, because I haven't, at least in my knowledge of like E3's past, ever really seen this kind of like use of Fig or Kickstarter of saying, hey, we have our our campaigns available, you should check it out. Just because it is a little against the nomenclature of what E3 is about, of showing off that game that's to come, since it's not really a for sure thing. But I definitely think that it makes a lot of sense for the reason I explained before, of you actually have a tangible action, not really tangible, but you have a specific action that you could go and take during that E3, when most of the announcements are just things that are like, here's some stuff that will come eventually. And it's like, okay, cool, but there's no like, I have an action to do on that, or I have something like, it's not actually buying the game or going out and playing the demo that might be on the Kickstarter page, or like things like that. So I think that definitely will be more of a thing, especially now that E3 is kind of going to more of a virtual platform anyway. At least that's what it seems to be alluding to, with the fact of PlayStation dropping out, and a lot of the companies
Everybody doing
directs,
content.
companies moving towards directs. So I think it makes sense, because it's easy for you to still compete with a lot of these big name brands when everything is turning digital anyway. You don't have to be there on the E3 floor to make an appearance, kind of a thing.
Yeah. And also, I think I'm going to say two more things about this. One, I think it is a little bit weird that everybody thinks it's crazy to announce a Kickstarter during an E3 showcase, especially because the exact same thing happens with mainstream games. So when I worked for GameStop, games would get announced at E3, and almost immediately we would have pre-orders available for them.
Right.
So it's a similar thing, but of course it's completely different.
Yeah.
Because one is like, this game is coming out unless for some reason it gets canceled, and another is like, hey, we need to fund development. The second thing I want to say is there's absolutely no way that Skatebird in any universe would not have a successful Kickstarter in the game space we're in right now, because everyone is so starved for good skate games. The fact that literally every year they're like, hey, EA, where's Skate 3? And it's like, well, now you got Skatebird, guys, so shut the fuck up. Just play Skatebird. It looks really cool. It looks super weird. It's got a rewind mechanic for some reason that I think is really awesome.
Yeah.
And you should back it on Kickstarter.
The soundtrack alone is one of the things that really interests me, because when we first did a news article on Skatebird a couple episodes back, we were like, oh, this will probably be, at least based on the initial trailer, we said, oh, this will probably be, very Tony Hawk-esque, where it'll be more of a skate punk kind of aesthetic to it, where you're listening and it has that kind of old school vibe. But what they've actually done, if you read the Kickstarter, is they had a composer create all of the music himself. Or herself, I'm not sure of the gender. I just thought about that. The composer created all of it themselves, and they're going for more of a lo-fi hip-hop kind of sound to it, but they titled it lo-fi, and because in here they're not called birds, they're called burbs, it's lo-fi burb hop, which I thought was hilarious. And also, as I was listening to some of the songs, basically what they did is they did like lo-fi songs of like kind of very mellowish but hip-hop-esque, but they have like a lot of backdrops of like these what sound like old school radio announcers talking about like fish and birds and stuff, of like the sparrow eats the trout or something like that, like really fucking strange. So I was like, this is going to be such a sleeper of a soundtrack. Like I'm sure this is going to be one of those things where when the game comes out, I'm immediately going to be like, okay, how can I get the soundtrack just so I can listen to that?
Yeah, I'll guarantee that Skatebird is gonna be the next like indie darling. I feel like there's almost no way that this game comes out and isn't a massive hit. Which, once again, this could be me just giving far too much credit to people, but I really feel like Skatebird's gonna be great. Is that what you wanted to say about Skatebird?
Yeah, I think
I feel
we
like
can
I
move
should
on.
actually ask you before we
Yeah,
move on,
no.
since. Man, we should have just put it in news.
I know this.
since we're gonna
Yeah,
talk
we didn't
about it
even
so much.
didn't really even cram this one.
The next one is over on Polygon. Is Spiritfarer is beautiful and touching with a strong Animal Crossing vibe. Only thing I'm gonna say about this is I don't really play Animal Crossing, but I don't see in any world how the Spiritfarer feels like Animal Crossing. But all right.
Yeah. Looks super weird,
staying
though.
on yeah. Staying on Polygon, we've got Valfaris, maybe?
I think
Is
so.
a heavy metal side-scroller from the creators of Slain, Back from Hell. Then, staying on Polygon, the Last Oasis pits giant walking structures against each other on a scorched earth. Last Oasis looks real cool. Looks very, very interesting. Now we've got... Oh, what I wanted to say was, with the Last Oasis, it reminds me a lot of Worlds Adrift with our, 2 weeks ago, how we talked about how Worlds Adrift was basically being canceled. They were shutting
Right.
down the
Yeah,
online
yeah.
servers. The Last Oasis looks really similar to it, and I don't know if that's a good thing or if that's a bad thing. It's I'm up in the air about it right now, but it looks better, I should say. Like, the art style looks better, looks a little bit more realistic instead of, like, cartoony in a way. Like, Worlds Adrift kind of look like Absolver's art style, and The Last Oasis looks a little bit more, like, realistic, I guess. So maybe that'll help people out. Maybe it'll be even better. I don't
Maybe.
know.
Plus, their team name is Donkey Crew. What a cool name.
Also on Polygon, Griftland's deck building strategy game
Looks
goes
pretty
into
cool.
alpha on July 11th. Yeah, why didn't we talk about this in
Looks-
news? I
wow.
thought you'd be really excited about it.
I'm trying to limit my amount of time that I talk about card-based games.
Because you're slowly
Dude,
realizing that they're your
I was
favorite
like,
games.
I was so obviously spoilers for people who are listening, but our next segment will have a card-based game that I gush about.
I imagine that's a shocker to our fans.
I know.
If we have any.
I mean, we've got at least one,
yeah, he
and he
makes
makes cool
Second
designs for us.
boys?
Or her. We don't know the gender.
Also true.
But yeah, because I don't know. All right, fine. I like card games. Just shut up, all
You
right?
fucking love card games. Why are you denying it?
Because I don't like the normal games that you think of when someone says card games. They're like, do you want to play Hearthstone or Magic the Gathering or like Yu-Gi-Oh? Well, Yu-Gi-Oh's okay.
That's a trading card game. We're talking about card games. Totally different. 100%.
I'm pretty sure that when you say card games, that's what the majority would move towards.
Yeah, because they don't know the lingo.
Alright.
It's all about them, like, card games, not the TCGs. Even though I like TCGs, fucking Yu-Gi-Oh! For life, dude. Wish I would have played Neopets and Metabots when I was young, because they're super cool. Our next news story is moving out from Polygon. No, it's not, actually, because that's the wrong one. Then the next news story is on Polygon. It is Midnight Ghost Hunts pits you against a squad of ghost hunters.
Looks real cool.
Yeah, it reminds me of Carrion, how instead of playing like the ghost hunter, you actually play like seemingly the ghost. That was pretty cool. Now over on Game Informer, we got this is an exclusive. Read Only Memories has a sequel announced. That I didn't play the first one, but that's cool.
Me neither.
Then something I really didn't know I wanted, and I'm gonna tell you right now I didn't want it. Imagine Dragons is coming to Beat Saber. I don't care. I don't like Imagine Dragons.
Nah.
So
I mean, good for them. But also, can't you put any song in Beat Saber?
the real question is just why didn't you put any other song in Beat Saber instead of any Imagine Dragons songs?
This is what the people need.
I mean, what the people need is, dude, you could put Old Town Road in Beat Saber and people would have lost their shit. Imagine Dragons? Come on, dude. Come on.
I don't know.
Get your head out of your ass, okay?
You too.
Now over on Twinfinite, we got Ukulele and the Impossible Lair can be finished in one level. I have no idea what that means, but it seems pretty interesting.
It's
Also on Twinfinite.
It basically just means that it's a speedrunner's dream because the game teaches you how to play the game as you play through each of the levels, but you could also just go to the final world right away and just be like, nope, I'm good at platformers. I'm just going to play it.
Oh, that's really sweet. So it's like, hey, you could have the coddling version or the not.
Pretty much.
And see how good you do. Also on Twinfinite, we've got Sunny's stealth game El Hijo, maybe, gets a new trailer at E3 PC Gaming Show.
El Hijo.
Sure it is. There's an H in there. What are you talking about?
The H is silent. The J is an H.
This is bullshit. Then we got Terraria enters its twilight phase with Journey's End expansion. We also have Chucklefish announces Starmancer, which is like, in quotations, Dwarf Fortress in space. Honestly, didn't know the Dwarf Fortress wasn't in space. So there you go. Then we're moving over to Nintendo Life. We've got Overcooked 2's latest DLC adds horrifying horde mode. Also on Nintendo Life, take on an isometric survival game. Fuck, dude. I can't believe I can't read this title.
That's tough.
It's really throwing me off. My eye feels weird right now. I'm breaking down. I'm just dying. Let's be real here.
Well, you'll make it. I'll just sit here and watch.
I'm going to make it until Psychonauts 2 comes out, and then I'll die.
Ooh,
I'll be fine with that.
Baby. I mean, well, you have to play it first. You can't die right away. Then what's the point?
That's true. Yeah, if that was a genie wish, I would have absolutely just effed myself.
Yeah.
I would have played myself,
What are you
dude.
doing, bro? You gotta pay attention.
That's why I gotta tell genies not to fuck with you, dude. It's kind of funny rules. The first wish is don't fuck with me, genie.
Is that how it works?
It's solid. I guess.
All right.
Then you've got take on an isometric survival adventure when Distrust crash lands on Switch. Okay, that threw me off for some weird reason.
Sense.
Nicholas reveals Ikaruga physical release for Switch. Then we've got indie developer shares bad news about publishing on Switch after pitching his game to Nintendo.
Did you read that full story? It was.
I did not read it, but I watched the video and I was like, why is this a story? The kid that's making the game, he's a cute kid. I actually really feel sympathy for him, but I don't understand how this is a news story.
Yeah, it just seems a little harsh on the fact that they're just like, oh, Nintendo doesn't like anyone, and that's not true. I feel like there's just times where Nintendo is a big corporation and they have to put their foot down in certain situations. So yeah, it's a mass communication, but do you think that the head of Nintendo or the people that are working on this are going to write every single one of the people that they have to reject a personalized letter? They probably get so many different submissions every day.
Yeah, I mean, it does suck that I imagine as a developer, let alone just I have reached out to people and wanted to just write.
Oh
for
yeah,
them.
it's heartbreaking. Of course
and
it is.
Yeah, they've sent me a rejection letter that seemed like just a copy and paste letter with oh, fill in the blank with his name kind of a thing.
Mm-hmm.
That really sucks. Let alone creating a game and being as young as this guy seems. I imagine it's kind of it's heartbreaking, but I do love that this indie developer was not at all disheartened by this. He talks about in the video that he is going to he's actually just going to switch focus, no longer try to develop for Nintendo Switch. Instead, he's going to fix his game to run on iOS, and then he's going to basically try to partner up with an independent publisher and once again try to go to the Nintendo Switch. So yeah. I would say the best part about this news story is something that was seemingly buried, is that this indie dev, not only is he young and it's really cool that he's making indie games at whatever his age is, he just either he's extremely youthful or he's young.
Which are both good, I guess.
Yeah, that's awesome, but also just kind of his spirit to keep going on even though he got rejected by Nintendo is fantastic. That really should have been the news story, if anything.
Yeah, I just don't like the way it was framed, where it was Nintendo is the big bad guy in this, and I was well, I mean, yes and no, because it's they're running a business.
Yeah, and I mean, now you know that Nintendo actually rejects stuff.
Yeah. Well,
Which means that they're like,
which means that
the massive amount of games that are coming to their console is on purpose.
yeah, which also means that some of those games, like there's like a game that's literally like, what was it? Santa Tracker or something, and it's like some BS, like just
The super dumb, like seemingly iOS cash grabs.
yeah, like some of those are still getting through.
Yeah, so you're like, what's up, Nintendo? How did they get an indie publisher? Like, did they just say that they were an indie publisher?
Yeah.
I don't know. Speaking of indie publishers, we've got our next article on in Nintendo Life, and it is Gris Physical Edition Switch pre-orders will soon go live. Ooh. That's super cool. Yeah, dude, I love me some physical games, as everybody knows. Mm-hmm. Then we've got, maybe this is how you say this, Chris Tales is an indie love letter to classic JRPGs, and it's coming to the Switch.
Are you yawning or sneezing?
I would know. I was midway through a burp, dude.
Oh,
I have like the burp in my throat while I was saying that, and I like did the thing where you like crane your neck to try to hold it in. You know what I mean?
Did you?
Yeah.
Did you get it? Are you good?
Yeah, I got it out. I feel better now.
Close one. All right.
Yeah.
Last
I
one.
could have blown up. That's what I've heard from my parents.
Oh, yeah?
They're liars,
They
but I've
are.
heard
They're filthy
that
liars,
if you hold
but
in burps or farts, you'll blow up.
that would be crazy. There would be
Yeah,
so
too
many
much.
explode. Like, how could you get away with that lie? There would be too many people exploding.
So I'm going to ask you an extremely personal question, even though I promised I wouldn't ask these anymore in random questions.
Does that have anything to do
Have you
about my
ever held in
genitalia?
a fart and it like it made your stomach like rumble and feel weird?
Oh yeah, of course. That happens.
Yeah, dude.
Anytime you get like a little bit nervous, that shit will happen. Like I remember when I was really young, and there were times where it's usually when you're like on a first date that would always happen, and I'm like, oh man, I gotta fart. But you're like, I'm not gonna fart in front of her because then she's gonna smell it, and then she'll never talk to me again. So I gotta hold it in. But then you're like, oh, now my stomach feels like shit, and it's just a whole big ordeal.
Yeah, like growls, and you're like, sorry, I'm just really hungry.
Yeah, I'm so so glad I have a wife now who I could just fart in front of and not feel any need to keep away the stink.
Yeah, right? I mean, one of my favorite things to do is, like, when my girlfriend just decides to, like, cuddle me at night, which is, it's not that often because I'm, like, a heater and she gets hot really quickly. But when she decides to cuddle me and, like, my butt is basically just, like, right on her stomach
This is gross.
and just rip one, dude, right on her.
That's gross.
It's so funny.
You nasty.
So our last news article in this, after I asked you some weird ass like toilet questions, is rotating platformer Alien Escapes twists and turns onto Switch next week. So Josh, we've been blessed with so many amazing indie games news stories today that I think it's about time we give back to the creators in our next segment. God bless the crowd. This is where Josh goes into all sorts of awesome crowdfunding sites. Fig, Indiegogo, which I don't think we've had yet, but that would be cool. Kickstarter, other ones that I don't know if they exist
We've
or
had
not.
Indiegogo before.
Oh, we have? Yeah, I haven't
we
paid
had,
attention, I guess.
What was it? It was the one that was based on that comic. I can't remember.
Oh, yeah. I do remember that. Can't tell you what the name is, but man, that comic was cute.
Yeah,
Like,
that's
that
all I
girl looked
remember.
really cute. Yeah. So, yeah, Josh pops in, grabs some awesome indie games to talk about, generally card games, because he's just obsessed with them. This
What can I
week,
say?
we've got... Yeah, you love them. That's what you could say.
I guess so.
That you love card games. This week we've got only one. Normally we've got two, but Josh, like he grabbed it. I'm gonna tell you right now, this looks like a good one. I do have to
I
like.
can't tell if it's sarcasm.
That's not sarcasm. It actually does look really interesting. I like the art style a lot.
Yeah.
It is called Roguebook. Roguebook aims to become the ultimate roguelike deck builder based on the Legends of Fey universe, or Faria is actually what it's called. They're asking for $67,161. They have $48,738 currently, with 18 days left to go. 2,275 backers currently. This game looks really cool. I had a problem with it, but I
here we
cannot
go.
remember what it is.
Well, as we describe it, maybe you'll figure it out. So I'll go over a little bit about.
I remember what it is.
Yeah. Oh, you do? Okay, let's hear
Yeah, I
it.
remember what it is. The actual video for this talks about Slay the Spire more than it talks about its own game.
Yeah,
that was my issue with it.
They gave an interesting history lesson on like card games and roguelites in general. For like
This was probably the most I've actually learned from a Kickstarter thing, but not about their own game.
Yeah, it was a little strange that they pushed so much of that, but I was like, from my perspective, I was interested in it, and I was like, oh, okay, and I kept watching through. But yeah, they do go a little hard on this history lesson, and I think that's because they're probably more into an earlier phase of the game and didn't have a ton to show off, other than more of the the small snippets that we get in the GIF images and the actual like little screenshots. But it looks super cool because what it's doing is essentially very similar to most deck building roguelites, where you essentially go through and each play turn, or God, I don't know why I was thinking that word, mashing up wrong things. Basically, each turn that you go through, you'll navigate a map, and you'll get to decide based on where you're walking through if you're going to find things to fight, if you're going to find things to shop for, be able to craft, have various events that show up through the game. And then while you're doing that, you're building out a deck of cards, which is your character's attacks and abilities. So every time you play the game, it'll restart. And I actually kind of like the lore that they built into this, because Rogue Book is about you actually reading a book, which is very strange, but it's essentially the book traps you inside of itself, and each time you open the book, it rewrites itself, is how they went about the procedurally generated aspect to this. So you're trying to defeat this book, and you're going in with 2 champions. And the reason why this is different in my mind and looks very interesting is because, one, the aesthetic to it of the actual animation and the drawings, like the character design, I think looks very nice. But the main aspect is the fact that you're playing with 2 champions, and each of your cards are based on their specific champions the specific champions you have. So very similar to something like the recent SteamWorld's Quest. But in this case, what happens is each of these cards, when you use one, that character will step in front to attack the enemies. So this is leaving you basically vulnerable to the enemies, and you have to strategize what order you're using your cards, and what the health amount you have for each of those characters is at, for what actions you can take. So there's a lot of extra strategy in this of, it's not just playing what's the strongest cards that I have. It's about, okay, well, I have to do them in this specific order, or I can't use this card because if he goes in front, he's going to die, XYZ. So there's a lot of variables to this. And from reading the description and the things that they're saying they're going to put into it, it seems like there will be a lot of variability in the gameplay as far as you keep playing, you're going to unlock new abilities and new cards that you can start with to make you not only stronger at the start, so that there is some form of a progression, even though it's a roguelike that keeps restarting, but also that as you keep going, you'll get new events and unlock new enemies to fight, so it keeps it even more fresh as you're going through the campaign.
Yeah, I like a lot of this world. I do want to say one more thing that is kind of weird about this trailer.
Okay.
So they did take a long time explaining what a roguelike card, like deck builder is. Yep. Do you think that was necessary in the world we live in today, where it seems like every other game is a roguelike deck builder, for them to take 8 minutes to explain what it is?
I don't think so, but I think what they're trying to do is prove to at least the people who are in it for already understanding what a roguelike deck builder is. They're trying to basically say, hey, look, we're passionate about it and we really want to do it right. Whereas the people who have no idea, they'll probably lose them on this front, because explaining it for that long will just make them not as into it. But I think, like I said, I think what they're really focusing on is they're trying to say like, hey, for those who really understand the genre and like the genre, we want to do this better than it's ever been done before.
Yeah, that's very true. I also do enjoy the fact that like seemingly like roguelikes they're called roguelikes because of a game called Rogue that was released, but instead of like Rogue being the thing that people know as a roguelike, they use like Enter the Gungeon as a roguelike. I was like, nice. It's kind of funny because when people say Metroidvania, they generally specifically talk about Castlevania or Metroid. But it's with roguelikes, I don't think most people actually know that that's based on a game that was made in the 1980s.
Well, I think in the reason for that is because that game is obviously not as popular, and it's not as, I mean, it's clearly well received in the regards of those who are creating this and the diehard fans, but like the roguelike genre blew up more around the time games like Spelunky and like Binding of Isaac.
That's true. Yeah, it's
like it wasn't.
I see where you're going. It's much more recent of a thing.
It wasn't as obviously popular in the eyes of the major media from a game's perspective. So I think that's really the reason why that aspect of it has kind of been forgotten. And it also is because when you hear Metroidvania, that's clearly not a word. Like it's an obvious mashup, whereas Rogue is,
it's like a fantasy archetype.
Yeah, like it's.
Yeah, I get what you're saying.
It doesn't seem like a game. It seems like they use that word because it's to generate from the actual word itself, kind of a thing.
I gotcha. So, do you think that this Sif the Blood Tyrant can actually change that little that fiery arm to the other arm? Because lower down in some of their character art, it's the wrong arm. So I'm wondering if I just don't understand how his fiery arms work or not, but down on the concept art, it's his right arm, and in everything else, it's his left.
Well,
what's up, dude?
That's concept art.
Which arm is it?
They conceptually changed it after.
They're like, he's going to be facing left most of the time, so we actually need to put the cool arm just right up front, dude. Man. It's got to be right there. Something I do really like about this is it's really rewarding to people who like I believe you say it, Faria series, because not only is this, it's based within that world, but it's also, part of the narrative and part of just the world building that this has is actually based on the lore of Faria. So they actually talk about later on how some of the bosses and big opponents you'll fight are actually bits of the lore that exist within their other game, which is so fucking cool. I think that's so interesting, especially because it really it's kind of an added bonus for people who are big fans of the lore of that world, because they know nobody else is really going to know. You have to play an entirely other game, I'm assuming, to actually understand why that's so important. But if you know, it's an added layer of awesome.
Yeah, that's true.
It's just gravy.
It's interesting. I'm looking through some of the stretch goals, which I don't think they're going to hit a lot of these just because they get pretty high and they haven't built up enough crazy backing to hit that goal yet. Not to say that they won't. I definitely think they're going to make the initial goal, but the stretch goals seem a little off for some of them. But one of them that's really interesting to me is down the line for 200,000 euros. It's giving voices to the characters with Team 4-Star. Do you know who Team 4-Star are?
No.
Have you ever watched the DBZ Abridged series?
Oh, I've heard of it.
So, yeah, it's basically just this group of people who do a bunch of abridged series of animes of both DBZ and Yu-Gi-Oh! And it's first off, I love them. I don't really watch them, but the few that I have seen have been pretty funny. But I just think it's so strange that it's with that team. Why of all people?
Yeah, I don't know. That is a good point. That is super weird. I also, so they're toting this as a single player deck builder roguelike. I think it is kind of interesting that one of their stretch goals is actually co-op. I was like, isn't that not single player?
I mean, if you can make that much money, why not?
I mean, I understand what they're saying. Like when they say single player, meaning that your opponent is not a person, it's actually single player, but I still think it's weird.
Yeah. I don't know how that would work either, because that seems kind of annoying, because you'd basically just be like, I want to use my card, and then someone would be like, no, you can't use that card. Like, I don't know, it just seems weird. Like, I don't know how this would work as a co-op
Oh my
game,
fucking god. One of their stretch goals is a battle royale mode.
Yeah, I saw that.
Fuck you.
I mean, it's so unlikely they're going to hit 800,000 euros, but yeah.
It's unlikely, but if they did, and I'm lying again, I don't even know. I was going to say I'd kill myself, but...
They might make it. You never know.
That's why I prefaced it with I'm lying again.
Got a nasty habit of that. I don't know. Honestly,
I'm just a liar. I'm a garbage
the
person.
game itself, right now there's an early bird still left for like 700 people to get the game for $26 US, which is a little high for most Kickstarters, but I don't know. I'm kind of thinking about it. And I sent it to a buddy of mine who usually plays these kind of games with me. And he was like, I was like, oh, this looks kind of cool. He's like, I already got it. Like, he didn't say he already got it, but he just like, he looked at it and was like, this looks awesome. I'm getting it now. And I was like, damn, now I feel like I have to get it.
So not only you, but I mean, you're kind of like, you have your own little cult of card game, like, lovers. That's kind of interesting. Like, if anybody's gonna pitch a card game, they should pretty much go to you.
Yeah, I'll be your PR.
Yeah, you're the master of card games now.
No. I'm not ready to put on that title.
So when you apply to IGN to do freelance, they ask you if you are like, what would be your expertise, a certain game genre.
Yeah, it would be.
You're gonna put card games, aren't you?
Yeah, I would. I would love to work for IGN for all the card games.
That'd be so funny if they literally would not allow you to write anything else but about card games.
Oh,
You're like,
man.
I'd
probably get...
And then they made you play like every fucking Yu-Gi-Oh game.
I'd get so tired so quick. I'd be like, well, I'm going to kill myself now. No, thank you. But this game,
yeah, $26 is a steep price, especially for early bird. The standard game is $28. Okay, $2, guys.
Difference. Like,
really?
Yeah, it doesn't matter.
What? Come on. What is that even about?
Also, they have 72 people who just bought it without the early bird deal. That's
interesting. Does it give you like something special? Is it the same thing?
It's the same thing.
What? Why?
I don't know.
I mean, it is access to alpha version 20 with 24 hours of your pledge.
No, it's the same thing.
Private alpha today. Yeah, it's the same thing.
But the interesting thing about it being $26 is this is one of those where you get the alpha right away as well. So it's like a lot of Kickstarters will do that for a higher tier, so they're just kind of lumping them together. And I think it makes sense. It's like we're seeing this in a lot of cases where they're starting to try and push people to be more into the creation of it so that it will come out hopefully to please them, but not only the initial backers, but the individual people who they might then sell the game to later.
Something I would like to say, that this is just like me talking. It's not about this game, but it's me talking about a previous episode. I felt really cool that the developers of the Unexplored 2 actually reached out to us and told us that we actually like got their FIG campaign 100%. Like we understood it exactly what they were trying to do with that campaign.
Wait,
and I was like, psh. Yeah, you didn't see that?
I didn't see that. Really? Oh,
yeah,
man.
Yeah. They reached out to us on Twitter and were like, they said that, I'll pull it up. You just keep vamping. You talk about card games more.
That's crazy. They said, oh man, that's awesome. Shout out to them, man. I definitely want to back that too. God, it's too many good games.
Seriously,
my wallet cannot handle all this.
I know, especially because I'm trying to save money to then spend more on indie games, which is kind of interesting. So basically, I'm saving money to get, like, I could just buy a tattoo, but I'm saving money so I feel more comfortable buying a tattoo, but it's a Hyperlight Drifter tattoo.
Ooh,
So that's why it's indie games. Damn, I gotta find this freaking.
All right, that's okay though. The shout out's awesome though.
Oh, okay, yeah. They said on Twitter, they said Indie Incursion is not just a really cool podcast on indie games. They actually get the whole idea behind our milestones on the FIG campaign. Have to listen and follow them on Twitter.
Damn.
Hell yeah.
That's awesome, man.
Right?
Woo, shout out to us.
I know. I felt pretty cool about that. I just had to say that. I thought you had like you had the chance to like look at that on Twitter.
Nope. Completely missed it. I don't know how. I'll have to go find that. But that's awesome.
Yeah, it's very, very cool. But back to this game, their character designs look really, really cute, with the exception of this creepy ass like tiger with long hair, like this blue thing that they have that's like wearing a mask, and it reminds me of like the faceless, like the face changer from Avatar: The Last Airbender. Kind of creeps me out.
Talking about the enemy
I don't think
thing?
I like it. Yeah, the Predator.
I was looking at the main characters you can play as. I was like, what are you talking about? It kind of looks like a weird, like a lion with the arms of the Grinch kind of a thing, and then just no face.
Yeah, it looks very creepy.
2 times 25 attack is pretty deadly. I don't know how they're going to get out of that.
I guess you'll find out if you play the game, which you will, because you love them card games, big boy.
I certainly do, I guess.
So now that we wind down this podcast, I want to ask you a very nice question. This is kind of an easy one. It's just entirely opinion, and it's basically like the reason I wanted to talk about this is mostly because at E3 we got confirmation there is a Division movie, and it's going to Netflix. So The Division is getting a movie. I also saw an article on IGN that the Gears of War movie is actually going to be set in an alternate universe. Hyperlight Drifter is getting a TV series on Netflix. There's so many amazing things. So I have on here what IP could make an amazing video game movie, but I would also like to know, like, it could be a TV show, possibly, because Hyperlight Drifter is getting a TV show. So what do you think of a video game IP could make a great like entertainment property outside of video games? Of course, I'm not talking about fucking board games, because they'd be cool, but not what I'm talking about.
Okay. All right. Well, I'll stick with video game movie, because when I originally saw this question, my mind went to a couple of different games, but it ultimately landed on BioShock. So I've always been a big fan of the BioShock series ever since the first one came out. I slightly dabbled with System Shock, which is where it kind of originated from somewhat, which is also good. But BioShock, just the idea of being in this kind of post-apocalyptic, not really, but yes, civilization underwater and being trapped there, and the strange, creepy undertones of everything that could happen in that kind of environment of what could go wrong is just really... There's something about that just intrigues me, of kind of a what if you were in that situation, so to speak. And
what if we had an airtight utopia at the bottom of the ocean? Yeah,
like one, it would be pretty damn cool from the start, but then it could start its own its own unique government / kind of environment, living like your own rules. You're under the ocean, like you make your rules, and that's kind of where all of that joins into creating this crazy story of BioShock, of going there and finding, kind of the craziness and the terrible aspects of human nature in a way, which I think is very intriguing. But to get to the main point of it is I'd love to see more of a BioShock 1, but like as those undertones were developing of all of the craziness happening. So kind of a prequel to BioShock 1 of before you actually get there, before the whole Andrew Ryan creation thing, whatnot, how it spiraled into what it was when your main character gets into the game. And one of the interesting things about this was I looked it up and I was like, oh, BioShock movie. And it was a thing that was, almost happened. It was licensed. There were people who were working on it. It was going to be a thing. And then based on creative decisions that were kind of spearheaded, they couldn't do it because they just clashed and decided that when one of the main publishers said, oh, it has to be a PG-13 movie, and the director wanted it to be R, and they butt heads about it.
What the fuck?
Yeah, they butt heads about it, and it didn't go through. So one of the things was the director, I don't remember any of the details, unfortunately, but basically the director was like, well, I want to make this movie the way it should be, because if you want to tell the story, you want to tell it correctly of how BioShock really is. And you can't do that in a PG-13 setting because the general, theme of BioShock is pretty mature from a standpoint of what's happening down there. So I'm definitely glad they didn't just, kind of chunk it out and make it a little bit, more parental friendly, so to speak.
Didn't just make another terrible video game adaptation.
Yeah, but it sucks because I want more of that world. But I really hope that something does come. There's some rumors in the work that it still might be a thing and it might come about, into fruition later down the road. But I would love that because I think that environment is such a unique world. And the fact that there's sort of that magic element with the different power-ups that the character was getting, and the fact that they were using a unnatural element would add to a lot of easy, CGI effect kind of work, and something that would really pull people in, but also have that interesting thriller horror type story to keep the audience going.
Yeah, honestly, I totally think this could happen, especially in a world where there's been 18 Resident Evil movies, and now Mila Jovovich or whatever her name is now in the Monster Hunter movie. This is a BioShock movie. Don't think it's far-fetched at all. Think it could totally happen.
I'd love it. Or if they could just give me a sequel of another BioShock game, I'd be happy with that too.
Oh yeah? You and the rest of gaming community as a whole?
I mean, I don't know about as a whole, but I'm sure there's a lot of people who have my mindset.
Yeah, people really like BioShock.
It's good.
I have not played any of them.
What?
I played a tiny bit of Infinite. I felt like this has come up in conversation before.
No, you're blowing my mind right now. You've never played any of them? Dude, play the original.
Yeah, no.
Play the original.
It's
an oldie, but a goodie.
So I actually have all of them on PlayStation 3, and I also have the BioShock collection. So I own it. I just have not played it.
I fucking hate you.
I love the...
What is wrong with you? Play BioShock 1. Don't play 2. 2 is... they could have done without that. BioShock 1 and Infinite, great games.
Yeah, I've heard that people kind of detest 2.
Well, it wasn't the actual... it was a different studio.
Oh, yeah.
And it just... I don't know. It just wasn't as good. 1 has such an amazing story and twist to it, and Infinite is just bonkers.
All right, then. I'll have to try them out.
Once you actually finish them, you'll know what I mean.
For my kind of just... Mine could be either a TV show or a movie, and it could actually be PG-13, since apparently everybody wants it to be PG-13. I would actually like Psychonauts to be made into a movie or a TV show, but I want it to be 2D animation.
Yeah.
That I don't want it to be 3D animation. I don't want it to be live action.
Oh god, live action would be so terrible.
I mean, yeah, you might think that about most things, but for some reason they keep making live action ones.
No, I could definitely see that as that seems very Sunday morning cartoon kind of vibe to it.
Yeah, and also it's not very serious, but it is something that adults and children could enjoy, so it kind of straddles that line of a Pixar movie where it's not... It might be technically meant for children, but it's absolutely something that adults can enjoy and fawn over.
Mm-hmm.
I think Psychonauts would make something just like perfect. Also, something that I could think like something could work really well is like the Divinity series, like Divinity Original Sin.
Yeah.
I think that could actually work really well. But of course, it would be like a typical fantasy story. It would just be like any of the like plethora of Dungeons and Dragons movies that have been made.
Yeah,
So.
I don't know if... I mean, I loved Divinity, but I don't know if that would resonate as well in that type of medium. I feel like without the game aspect to it, it would probably be lost amongst those who aren't diehard fans.
Yeah, high fantasy is pretty hard to do. Like I said, there have been like a ridiculous amount of Dungeons and Dragons movies put out, and they don't catch, like some of them definitely aren't bad, but they don't catch on. One, because they generally have terrible special effects.
Yeah.
But two, there's just so much lore that is packed into these games, and like in Dungeons and Dragons case, also a game but a tabletop versus a video game.
Right.
There's so much in there that like doing that justice in a movie is very hard to do. I would also like to pose you the question, are all video game movies bad?
No, Detective Pikachu is great.
There you go, Detective Pikachu. So I'm going to say right now, and this might lose me some people, I think Warcraft is completely watchable. It is not terrible. I don't think it's a good movie, but I think it's very watchable. I watched it and I was like, man, this makes me want to play World of Warcraft. And I played World of Warcraft again specifically because of it.
Wow.
So
I never played or watched, so I wouldn't.
You've never watched Warcraft? Nope. It's not that good, but it's watchable.
All right, I won't do it then. You've convinced me.
But, of course, that's about the end of this episode of Indie Incursion. This is episode number 35. We're getting up there. We got quite a few.
Oof. Been doing this for too long.
Yeah, we got 15 away from 50. Nothing special is going to happen then, just to let you know right now, but I'm very excited about it. Thank you to all of the awesome followers that have followed us on Twitter. We're like up to like 45 followers, which doesn't sound like a lot, but considering we had like 3 before and 2 of them were us, that's a lot. That's a decent amount.
Somewhere.
Plus, we had that awesome guy who made us that Psychic Boy shirt, so that's pretty dope. Thank you guys so much for listening. You can, of course, follow me at Hyde Legion on Twitter, follow the podcast at IndiePod, and you can follow Josh at _Josh90. Of course, make sure to check out all of the sweet-ass written content over on parallaxmedia.one, and make sure you guys subscribe on podcast services. You can find us on Spotify. You can find us on Google Podcasts, on iTunes, on something else that I can't remember right now. You can just find us anywhere. You can also subscribe to Parallax Media on YouTube. That's where we also post this podcast. There's no video. It's just a static image, but it's there. So feel free to look at nothing. That's
one day. Fun. One day we'll get actual cameras.
Yeah, eventually we will get video. I feel like once I go part-time, we could probably do video, because I'm just like a slob right now because I get off work, take a shower, eat a delicious Luna bar, and then I hop on the podcast. But once I go part-time, I can look like a completely put-together human being.
Wow. And I'll just look like myself. But I also need to get a camera, so I should probably work on that.
There you go. That's it for us today. Thank you guys so much for listening, and we'll see you guys next week.
Bye, guys.